What is going on, my game design gurus, and welcome to the Level Design Lobby. Hey everyone, I hope you are well, playing and or making the games that you love. You are joining me, your host, Max Pears. Thank you all very much. It's that time again, my favourite people, where we talk about some of the great resources that I found over the past month and would like to suggest to you amazing peeps. I've said this before in other episodes, but I'll say it again. This is really about building a community with the Level Design Lobby and sharing cool and awesome stuff together. Because although I may have some points that I make, I do not know everything about game or level design, and I'm always eager to learn. And I think that's important for everyone. So I share with you some of the cool stuff that I found through the power of the interwebs and some more sort of areas that we can all learn from and grow from. So shall we just jump right on into it? The first two are going to be podcasts. So I'm going to be breaking these on and chatting about them. The first one is the Designer Notes. Now, Designer Notes has been going on for a while, I think. But they're really cool. I've been listening to them for a while. I really like the stuff that they do. They always have interesting talks with different guests. It's them sitting down with developers and chatting about how they got into video games, what kind of impacted them, what kind of led to their design choices, and all these sort of things. So you get an understanding of the person, and then you can kind of see how this person's design philosophy, I guess, was shaped. And they discuss about the process of making their games. So that's really interesting as well, because each game, as we've said before, is made similarly but different at the same time. And this one I'm going to recommend is Steve Gaynor, which is one of the developers who's worked on Bioshock 2. Man, why have I got struggling on this one already? Minerva's Den and the critically acclaimed Gone Home. And it's a really interesting one, just talking about how he went around switching from AAA, I guess, to indie, and sort of how he came about doing this, as well as the other stuff I previously mentioned. It's really cool, and again, talking about some of their design choices which have changed because of going and designing on a budget from a bigger AAA budget to a smaller indie one, and how that kind of affected their design philosophy as well. There is 2 parts. Now it's episode 29 is part 1, and episode 30 is part 2 of the same interview. And they're worth checking out. I've only heard part 1 so far, but if you're interested to continue more, part 2 is episode 30. And now we're going to go to the next one, which to me is a really, really cool one. I loved this episode. I listened to it twice. It is one of my favourite podcasts, which is The Psychology of Video Games. And it was episode 35, Player Empathy and Drivers of Gameplay. And this is where the host sits down with Jason Vandenberg, who is was previously the creative director of For Honor at Ubisoft. And he moved on to, I've forgotten the name, I'm really sorry, to the company that makes Guild Wars. He's moved on to that studio. And he's talking about how he has used psychology theories through his career and what he's learnt from this. It's a really interesting one, and there's a lot to take away from this one. As I said, I've listened to it twice because I think it's a really good one. And if you don't know who Jason is, he to me is a stud. I think watching him present For Honor E3 is an absolute classic. It's a great one. And yeah, just breaking again how his design philosophies came about, how he learned about psychology, and I guess how important psychology is to video games. When you think about it, especially, I'm just talking from a level design perspective, it's important from a game design as well, because he'll break that down better than I will. But as level design, we're trying to manipulate players. We're trying to lead them. Manipulate's a strong and horrid word. I don't mean it in an aggressive way. I mean it more as we're trying to lead players. We're trying to make players move the way we want them to move, to interact the way, and encourage them to play certain ways sometimes and use the space. So I think it is important for us to try to figure out a way to communicate with the players subconsciously And this brings up some great ways to do it. So I strongly recommend checking out that. It was a great episode and it's one I really, really enjoyed. Now is going to be a shameless plug of one of my articles, which is called Design Pillars, the Core of Your Game. This is up on Gamasutra. In case you didn't realize already, links to all of these will be in the description down below. You don't have to search them. There'll be a link to them, so don't worry about it. As I was saying, the core of your game. So what I'm talking about here is more breaking down when you're coming up with your game. Try to break it down easier when you're trying to explain this. What is the core elements of your game? The term is pillars. It's used at other studios, so I've just taken it. It can be something else you want to call it. But I break down how important it is because it helps you decide on when it comes to that time which inevitably happens for you to cut back on certain things, such as a mechanic, or even when you're designing a mechanic, does it actually fit into your game? It may be super duper cool, but does it actually fit into your game? Does it reflect the feeling, the tone, that gameplay loop that is the aim of your game? It really breaks it down. But not also this, but also breaking it down how it is important for your teammates as well. Because when you break it down to these basic elements, when they're designing and creating, they'll be able to keep this in mind so that they can make the best products for the game as well. So I really enjoyed this one. It's one of my favourite ones that I've written. Again, very shameless plug. Now we're going to go into the fourth. We are flying through these today. Sorry about this, guys. I'm kind of rattling them off quicker than I mean to. So we're going to be moving on to a GDC talk. I really, really did like this one. A Mortician's Tale, a different view on how games treat death. Now, anyone who follows me on Twitter know that I tweeted this out. I was really, really into this one. And it talks about the game A Mortician's Tale. I have not played this, but I just thought it was very interesting as they try to tackle death. And it is the role of you being a mortician, ones who, I guess, lack of a better term to put it, kind of gets the body ready for the funeral and showing you what happens in the stages of death and getting players used to it. It's really interesting because Gabby, who is giving the talk, she talks about why this was important for her personally as well, as she struggled to comprehend and had a massive fear of death, and just educating us as people, not just developers, how death, it is a part of our lives, sadly, and just how we can show it, I guess, in a more I don't want to use the term more interesting, in a different perspective for players. And I think it was a very good talk. I really, really did enjoy this, and I recommend people checking this one out here. It was a very, very good talk. I need to check out the game. If you have played the game, please let me know so you can let me know your thoughts on it. And now we're going to move on to Rogue Legacy's Design Post-Mortem. Now, if you have heard episode 15, which is a discussion with myself and Stuart Scott, one of the lead level designers at Ubisoft, we discussed briefly about Rogue Legacy as we talked about procedural generation. So this is really interesting because if you liked that episode and are interested in more breakdowns, I guess, of procedural generation, then this one will be a good one for you, and talking about how them using procedural generation helps them make some design decisions as well. It's a really cool one, and I recommend checking it out, and especially if you did like the 15th episode, then it'll be something that you did definitely enjoy. So there we have it, peeps. All 5 of my recommendations at this time. I do apologise, as this one kind of flew by quicker, I think, than I meant it to myself. So yeah, sorry about that. But all this stuff is really cool. I do like doing the essential reading episodes, these bonus episodes, to you all, because I think it's really important for us to constantly improve and learn. So yeah, it's really nice. It's really nice stuff. Okay, everyone. I guess I will catch you all next time. If you do want to contact me, please do through the magic of Twitter at MaxPairs, or if you want to email me, please do so leveldesignlobby@gmail.com. There we can have a chat about anything. As always, I'm happy to talk to people, which is really, really cool. Yeah, thank you all very much. If you are listening through the power of iTunes and any kind of podcasting app, please do rate this podcast 5 stars, please, 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 because it helps bring more attention to the podcast, which obviously helps grow the community. So the more of us, the better suggestions and that we can get and constantly improve upon. And if you're listening through the power of YouTube or SoundCloud, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And thank you all very much. It's always been fun, as always. I will catch you all next time. See you later.